Sarah Burns, owner and studio potter at Sweet Fern Pottery here in New Durham. I'm working with the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen this year. It's a special year. We're having the very first virtual fair here coming up in August 1st through August 9th. And with that virtual fair, there's a few of us that are offering online classes and tutorials that are pre-recorded. And so I'm here to offer that a pinch pots, hollow vessel sort of animals that we're going to build today with plate clay that we have bagged for you that are at the galleries all over the state of New Hampshire. You can go to the League of New Hampshire Craftsmen's website, nhcraft.org, and find those galleries. You can also find out more information at sweetfernpottery.com. So let's go ahead and get going with this. So you can pick up your clay, and it comes in a Ziploc bag, all sealed up for you. And it smells really good when it comes out of the bag. And so I'm gonna show you how to make these two little guys today. And we're going to make two little balls each, and I just sort of squeeze that clay right off, hopefully about the same amount. I'm gonna roll them into a ball, so I'm just using my hands. Clay is amazing that way. The clay that I'm not going to be using, I'm going to put it right back in my bag so that it remains soft and pliable, because the air, especially in the summertime, really wants to dry out the clay. And if you want to keep using it, keep it locked up in your little Ziploc bag. So just with my hands, I'm going to take these little mounds of clay and I'm going to just start to roll them in between my palms, sort of nice light pressure, and sort of just roll it around. And don't worry if it's not perfect. So there's one. It sort of fits just right like that in my hand. So maybe an inch or so. I might take a little bit off that one. So I'm looking to make two clay balls that are the same size. And those are pretty much the same. And these I know are already not going to be the same because these are less clay. So I'm going to just take a little bit off and roll those up. So we're going to need 4 balls of clay, and they can be any size you want. You could take the whole 2 pounds and make 2 really large balls of clay. You could make even smaller ones than these. You know, you could take this little bit and we can do little pinch pots. Maybe I'll just show that real quick. So you could do 2. For this, you just want to make sure that the two balls of clay are about the same size. So I talked about, once you do that, you sort of set them together in pairs. And this is a great project to do. You just need a clean surface at home. You may want to lay down some newsprint for yourself to keep the surface clean. Everything is washable. And your hands are a great tool, but you may want to just poke around your house and see what you can find. Some of the favorite things that I tend to have in my clay box that are normal things around the house. One of my favorite 2 tools is, one is a little toothpick. It has a nice pointy edge. It scratches the clay really nicely. And it makes nice long lines for myself. The other one is, my favorite tool is a bamboo skewer that you can use. It has a great little dotting area on that back side, and then a nice point that's a little bit larger than the toothpick, so you can draw and make nice little dots with that. The other tools that you can sort of use are like a coffee stirrer stick, flat edge. This is a funky little cocktail toothpick holder. It has a little fork on it, and it has a little grooved edge, so those can make some different textures. if you have an old toothbrush that you're not going to use again, toothbrushes can be a super fun and a little bit silly way to make texture or dots in your clay, but you would not want to use that again. Another tool is just a plastic fork, great for scratching, great for textures or dots and things like that. The other thing that I like to have is just a little cup of water just to dip my finger in. That's all I need when I'm usually working in this size. So we'll make our balls of clay, and then I'm gonna just duplicate what I've made before. But you can see with the little bird that there's this hollow section right here. I've added some texture to have a wing, and this is an added section, and this little tail fin is also an added section. The little turtle is two smaller pieces coming together, and then I added his little legs and tail and head on the other side at the end. So we may want to save a little bit of clay afterwards. So when I do this, I tend to make things in a series. So I've made 6 balls of clay, and so then my hands can get really used to it. Pinched forms is one of the first ways of making a pot with clay, oldest way. And how I do this is I hold the clay in my left hand, sort of cradling it in the palm, and then with my right thumb, I'm going to just sort of come down and just gently press and make one little hollow right down in the center. And you can see what happens. And what is great is my palm cradles that clay and keeps it nice and round. And then between my index finger and my thumb, I'm going to just sort of pinch from the bottom and spiral up that little bowl. So I can, I'm going to move my hand a little bit closer so you can see that I'm squeezing the clay sort of up and in, and so you can start to see it, and I sort of move it in a circular way using that big section of my thumb, and I press all the clay as I get to the top. Just like that. And when I get to the top, I try to leave that little bit. I don't pinch right to the top because that extra bit of clay is going to help us attach the 2 little cups together. Now, this is what I ended up with right here, and this is the bottom part. So you can start to see all the little finger marks going around. And there's a little bit of cracking happening, but I'm not too worried about that. And so I'm going to set this down and give it a little pat because I'd like it to be a little even when we put it together. So I'll do that again and press right down through, squeeze between the fingers. This one I'll go a little bit faster. So see how I'm twisting and turning it and using my fingers just so, and so that thumb is really pressing from the out to meet those fingers to thin out the clay. I leave the clay, about pretty thick. So if I want to carve it or what have you. So those are the 2 halves, and then when I put them together, they almost meet, but that's really good for me. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to set those 2 down, and now that my fingers are warmed up, I'm going to just keep going with that pinched form. So I'm going to press that down again. And I love working in a series for many reasons, because the one is that my fingers get warmed up, and then by the end I really have a great feel for that. Now here's a great example. There might be like a little crack starting, so you can just sort of take that and push it together, and just with those 2 little fingers like that. So don't worry, and if it really starts to crack, you can again, just turn it upside down. You can add just a teeny bit of water to your piece. So again, hopefully I can get to that one. So again, just sort of press that down, wrap those fingers right around and begin to twist, having that thumb sort of upright, twisting as I go, spiraling right up and keeping that clay a little bit thick. You'll figure it out as you pinch that clay and make these little tiny bowls, which are so sweet. If it's gotten too thin, because it will let you know. Clay is very good about that. And so I'm going to turn that one, this one. This is a little uneven here, but I'm not worried because I'll show you how. See, look at, there's a little gap, but I'm going to show you how to fix that. But those are almost the same size. So this is where clay is really great because can be forgiving as well as letting you know what it won't do. Let's see what we can do with these tiny little pieces. So they're just really small. And I'm just going to do a little tiny pinch pot. Doop. That's it. Quick and easy. I don't know what I'm going to make with these little tiny things. I'll have to think about that while we're making the others. All right. So now, just sort of quickly and get a great feel of the clay. And now we'll start to make our little bird. And again, working in a series, you kind of get in the rhythm of things. And so I'll show you how we're going to attach these two pieces together, which is really important. Now, I will use my toothpick for this. And anytime you attach clay to clay, you need to scratch the surface, just like that. And I will do both sides. So there's one. And there's the other. Just little scratches kind of close together. Now this is where the water comes in, because if I were to put these together, they're sort of really dry and they will not attach as well. So if I just take my water and a little finger dip, can you see that? And take and just sort of run my wet finger right over that rim, and you can see how shiny. And basically what's happening right now is the clay is getting all, it's called slip. It's creating a little bit of slip, and then I come back in and re-score that, and it really makes the slip like a glue when I attach those two pieces. So you can see that my scratch marks are a little irregular, and you don't really need to be, you don't want to be too aggressive, but just a nice light scratch right to the surface. And then what I'm going to do is just put those together just like that. Give them a little squish until I feel like all the air is sealed up in there. Okay. And it may take another couple of rotations. I'm using my thumbs to sort of push that seam together. Just like that. And then when I feel like I have enough of a seal there, then I'm going to come over with my finger. And just with my thumb and taking a little bit, that's why I leave a little bit of a thick rim on those little pinch bowls so that I can move that. And my thumb is one of my favorite tools because it is so large, it can really move a lot of clay. If I get a little extra clay, I'm going to just sort of scrape that off. And move that right around. And then with my hands, all that air is trapped inside there. So now I'm able to sort of push on it and the air pushes back on me. So I'm going to let that one rest for a minute, because sometimes clay needs to rest. It gets a lot of activity and then it needs to rest. So I'm going to go ahead and think about my turtle here and scratch that surface. Add a little bit of water. Re-scratch. Now this one, remember, has the little hole in it. It's gonna need some fixing. So I'm gonna scratch that surface still, and then I'm going to add that little bit of water make it the slip on there so that it becomes like glue when I attach it. And put those together, and I have a little bit of a gap, so I think I'm going to move them so I don't have so much of a gap in one area. So I'm going to push that, and then before I really get going, I'm supporting on either side of the bowl, and I'm just going to move that right down to seal up that hole, and I'm going to come around the other side and do that as well. This is another reason to leave your walls a little bit on the thicker side, because you're kind of using those walls to help press into and get the seal of those two bowls coming together. So if you have a thin spot, you may find it collapse, but that's okay, because you can just sort of crumple it up and try again, or you have a whole bunch of clay in your bag. So there it goes, and all of a sudden it's gone again, and there's that air. I can feel that the air is pushing out on that surface, so I'm going to just sort of take a little bit of time. And I love seeing those finger marks, but I'm going to show you how we can move those away. All right, so again, I'm going to let this little guy rest, and we're going to see what we can do with these little guys here. I don't know what. Let's see. Maybe a little fishy or something. Scratch this edge. And add a little bit of water. Add a little bit of water. You can see that the toothpick is a handy dandy tool for scratching that surface. It's very important. Anytime you add clay to clay, you will want to scratch the surface of each piece and attach them with a little bit of water or clay slurry. So there we go. You just make a little, those match up really nicely. So then I'm going to just come in and squeeze that. I'm actually going to squeeze it flat. Maybe this will be a baby turtle for my other friend over here. So, yep, I think that's what it's going to be. And then I'm going to take my fingers and move around. So you can see that I'm not using a lot of water, but just enough. So you'll find your balance when you are working through this, and too much water might make the clay a little soft. Oh, that's a cute I think that will be a perfect turtle. All right. So now I'm going to let him rest, and then I'm going to come back to this one. Now I have a great surface here. If you have a surface at home, you can put newspaper down if you need to. And so I'm going to just roll this guy and even pat it, because I think about birds having a little bit of a flat back. So I'm going to just use my table a little bit. And I can sort of pinch this down a little bit and sort of roll it on the table. Again, it's so fun because you can use the pressure of the air that's inside our little pinch form. And all of a sudden, it's sort of starting to change shape quite a bit. And then I'm going to roll it side to side to get that sort of body going. This guy's going to be a little plump. I think I like that too. And just gently. So when I handle this, I have real gentle fingers and gentle pressure on the table, going back and forth. And this works really great on newspaper. And sometimes I can just do a gentle tap down just to get a little bit more of a firmer line there. All right, do you think it's starting to shape up? So again, I am going to let this little bird rest, the body first rest, and then I'm going to get right into my turtle shape. So I already have my baby turtle, so I'll make another one, another friend. So this one I'm going to be a little bit more, because I want him to be a little bit flatter, right? So back and forth I can roll with a little bit of gentle pressure. And sometimes when we do this, our finger marks go away. which is kind of, it's interesting. Some people really like the finger marks, but it's your animal and you can do it however you would like. So I'm going to make that little edge. I'm starting to press the edge out for that little turtle shape. I've been seeing a lot of turtles this summer in the water at the lake, snapping turtles too. So that's been fun. So I think that's a pretty good shape. Might do a little bit more work when I come to make the pieces. So there's my little turtle body that we're going to be making. And then this guy doesn't need a whole lot of shaping now because I did it before because he's so small. So I'll leave that. This is a little bit flatter here, so I'll just do that. So now we're going to talk about making the little head and the tail fin for the bird, and I'm going to show how to draw on the wings. Now, while I'm doing this, you can start to think about what's your favorite animal and thinking about that little body and how this could work out for you. Or, do you have to do an animal? You could do sort of a fun little monster, a one-eyed monster. So I'm going to grab a little bit of clay. So your imagination clay can work really well with imagination. All right, so now I'm going to make a little bird head, and I'm just going to need a little bit, almost like just enough. It does not, so I just start off with a little marble size, just like that, maybe a nickel size or something along those lines. And then I'm going to just shape it a little bit. I'm going to put it right at like that. And then basically I'm going to just pinch the beak out. See, again, your fingers are just the best tools. Like that. What do I think? Maybe a little turned up nose or beak. I think, so then what I do too is I hold it away from me and just sort of, maybe I'll have him sort of looking a little bit off to the side. I think I really like that. So what I might do is just take my fingernail and make a little tiny mark so I know where I'm going to scratch that surface. Now, this is really careful. You'll want to go just a little bit into the surface, and because now the hollow form is there, and so you don't want to puncture because the air will deflate a little bit, not too much. Add a little bit of water because then we make the clay slurry, and re-scratch with our toothpick. And then I'm going to give a little bit of a wiggle for that head to go on, just like that. All right. He's going to have a little bit longer beak than his buddy. And then what I do, you can, so there's the start of it. What I might do is just take a little bit of clay, like a pinch of clay, and with my fingers in my hand, just roll a little coil and add just a bit of water. I'm not going to scratch this time. So I'm going to add it right alongside his back of his head. And I'm going to squeeze that right in. And then this, you can always use your fingers, right, to smooth that out and blend. And that just gives that really great neck space because they tend to just go right into their back. And it's one continuous line right up to the bird's head. This is a tiny bird head in comparison. So I'm going to come over here and smooth that out. I can really get my finger in there. You may find a tool at your house that's maybe wooden that might work out really well. And I just take my finger and just smooth it out. And I might do something with that neck area. So I just might squeeze it down because they tend to just sort of blend. You could add another coil. So take your time, and one of the best things I love to do about making is just taking my time and kind of taking a second look from a little bit different angle and seeing what I can do here. Usually that's not going too badly. I might just sort of rock him a little bit. He might sit nicely too with no legs, just like the other one. So I'm gonna leave his beak and his head alone, and then I'm gonna add a little tail fin. So right there on the back side. So I'm gonna take another little lump of clay. I like to start with a little ball of clay, and then just with my fingers, I can pinch it, and I might put it on the table and use my palm and just gently squeeze it down. I like to leave clay kind of thick, because then I have the opportunity to carve it or thin it out myself when I want to. So I'm going to make sort of a teardrop shape a little bit. And his tail fin is going to go right on that little hard edge right there. So again, scratch that surface. And, oh, I better scratch that surface too. Scratch that surface, add a little bit of water where you scratch. Sometimes I like to skip steps, but you should not. And then I'm going to squeeze that, do that little wiggle motion to make sure that the clay is attached to each other. All right, and then again, taking that look, and so then I can pinch out a little bit further if I want him to have a little bit longer tail fin. I'm just pinching that edge around. And then I'll come in and look at it from the top view and make sure that it's lined up the way I would like it. All right. I might squeeze that a little bit. Maybe thin it out so it's a little bit more triangular. He might be getting ready to take off. All right, I think I like that. I'm gonna finish him off completely so then you guys can see that. So he's gonna need a little bit of I put some little eyes on here and a little indication of his mouth, like opening up. And I came in and used my bamboo skewer to make some texture. So I'm going to, the bird's wings, you could also, so here I drew on the bird's wings here, just nice and did some lighter lines here. And the same thing on the other side, and then just drew those in. But you could, just for fun, I think I'll show you. So you could draw bird wings in, or you could take a little bit of clay, roll it again, maybe flatten it in your hands, and then pinch it out. Again, not too thin. And then I'm looking to make maybe a little bit of a triangle, and thin those out. Yep, just like that. And so I can use my little toothpick if I don't have the right size, and I can just cut it to the shape that I want, which is great. And I'll take my fingers back in and smooth those out. So he could have a wing that actually is a little bit outside of his body, maybe. That could be kind of interesting. Even though they do sort of look streamlined, it could be fun to add the wings and the textures of the feathers on there. So again, I'm going to just pinch that, hopefully to the same size. And what I can do is lay this one on top of the other one so I get pretty similar ones. And I'll cut them both using that toothpick. And then with my fingers, I'll take and just sort of, because feathers are very thin, so I'm just gonna thin out just the edge of those. And anytime you're done with clay and you have little scraps, you can just sort of pile them up, because you may use them in this project, but if you don't, you just put them right back in your bag and they'll stay nice and fresh. So what do we think? I think I might like this with the little wings on the exterior. So we'll apply those. All right, so scratch the surface. Scratch the surface. I'm doing the inside of my wings. And scratch, scratch. Add a little water. Add a little water. Scratch, scratch. And also do the same with both of those wings and re-scratch. And I'm going to lay that right on there. Maybe I'll make them a little bit further from the body just to give them a little bit of animation. And then I wonder if you guys saw any baby birds this summer. We had a couple nests at our house. There. Oh, I kind of like that. I'm glad we did that. All right, then I'm going to add a little bit of texture. And you can do whatever texture you want. You can experiment with tools at your house. Maybe you'll have some buttons or some seashells that you can press into the clay. You know, look around, see what you've got. I'm going to just draw in some nice little lines to give the idea of the wings and the feathers kind of going. Some tail. Just like that, nice and easy. And then on this side too. Now, you could, I think I would like to put a little, some face on him. So I just used the pointy end of my bamboo skewer before, and I liked that. So I did one little depression, I just pressed it in a little bit, and I did the same thing on the other side. So you see, you could just leave it like that. Sometimes I think about, that's actually not too bad, but I do like the roundness. So I take the other end of my bamboo skewer, and I'll just push that in and give a little bit of friendliness, and it just has those two little components working together. Now with my thinner line, I'm going to come in and just add that little beak line. Just to, almost starting to look like a crow. There. Now this is hollow and it's going to dry out. I feel like I'm pretty happy with it. So if you decide to leave this out, the clay will dry and become pretty firm, and it will actually change color. So I'm going to actually just add a little bit of a hole inside his wing, so it lets some of the air out, because when air gets hot, it expands, and so we want to make sure that our bird survives, and so we just want to put a little tiny hole to let the air out as it dries. And as your piece dries, it can just find a nice little resting spot and be there. Or you can crumple it back up and try it again. So here we go. We're gonna do the turtle. This one is really fun. So I like this little turtle because I put his legs inside the little hollow of the body. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So he's going to need 6 extra little pieces: his head, his tail, and 4 legs. So I'm going to take my little coil and I'm going to just divide up. So I'm going to try to do similar size pieces for his legs. And I'm just pinching them off, kind of feeling them in between my hands. And then the tail I'll make a little bit longer, and then his head, I'll give him a little bit larger amount. So I'll make another ball in between my hands. Sometimes you might want to try it on the table, but I find working my hands together. And then what I do with his head is I work one side of my hand so that it kind of makes like I would call it an ice cream cone. So you can kind of have this little bulbous piece. And then I might pinch it back a little bit, so you have a little bit of a teardrop actually. Okay, so there's his head, and then I'm going to make a little tail, and I'm going to do that same thing. I sort of lean into it a little bit, And it did do a little bit of cracking. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to add just a smidge of water to that. It just needs to be hydrated. That's what that clay is telling me. So there, and now it's a little bit better, but I just added a little bit of water to that, and it makes it, you don't need a whole lot. And so then his legs, I'm gonna actually do something like a little coil. So on your surface, your table, you can take your hand and roll back and forth with just even pressure. And I usually let them roll a little bit free on one side once they get a little bit flatter, and I just keep my hand sort of parallel with the table with a little bit of pressure downward. And I'm shooting to make those about the same size, so it's not, however it works out. So again, just sort of run that hand, nice coils. That's the secret to coils, is just running your hand parallel and allowing the table to keep the evenness and the roundness. So just a little bit of light pressure. So these are all about the same, and they're a little bit longer than I need, and I'll show you why. So I'm pretty happy with this shape. I might just come in and do a little bit bigger pinch to make that little turtle shell sort of pop out a little bit more. And then I have to just sort of decide. This will be my top. So here I'm going to add in all of my bottom pieces. This one is a little bit different. Where I added the wings to the birds, I'm actually going to put the pieces of the turtle inside the body. So this is where we need to be careful. So I'm going to do just a little bit of I'm going to take my bamboo skewer and press that in. If you don't have a bamboo skewer, you can use a pencil, or a pencil would just work beautifully. So I'm going to take this and put it inside that little hole. So I'm going to make that a little bit smaller on the end. So before I do all of my holes at the same time, I'm actually going to just dip my little leg in the water, and I'm going to put it right inside that little hole and plug it basically. And then I'm going to leave that, and I'm going to go to the other side where my other leg is going to go. So there goes the bamboo skewer. You can feel it go into that cavity a little bit. And then I'm going to put a little bit of water on that leg and put it right inside that hole. And press that in, plugging that hole. All right, so there's 2 legs. And then I'll come back over here. I'm going to put the other 2 legs in the front, or the back, I guess. Adding that little coil, a little bit of water right inside that hole. So I can make those a little bit smaller if maybe he's a tortoise, so he has long legs. All right, so then that one goes in there. Give it a little bit of a twist. All right, then I think what I'm going to do is put the head and the tail in, and then I think I'm going to do it this way. So I'll put the head here. So again, the bamboo skewer, make a little bit larger opening, add a little bit of water to that head, and press that in, and twist right inside. So here we go for the tail. A little bit larger. So this tail, the tails are kind of skinny, right? So I'm going to actually make this because it's already there. So I'm going to cut this down a little bit. And add a little bit of water. Add my tail. Snapping turtles have really long tails. And there it is. All right, so now he's sort of roughed out. And I see that his head needs to maybe come out. He's a little shy. And he needs to sort of... So I'm just using my hands here, figuring this out, seeing how I want his little legs to sort of come together, gently pressing the clay into the shape that I want. So I'm using my index finger here to make like a little joint. You can see that. I'll turn it, pressing, maybe putting this guy down so he has like a little paw coming down. And then using that to bend up against my index finger, so that, there. All right, how do we think? What do we think? Remember what I said about the birds? We sort of take a little bit different perspective on this. So I'm going to just take a dab of water. I'm going to come in and smooth that turtle body out a little bit. I have a few cracks. All right. Pretty happy with that bottom. And so now I can start to think about the design on the top of his shell. So he could be a traditional turtle, or he could sort of have a circular pattern on there with texture. So if you had shells or stamps or some fun things like that, little stars you could draw on him, you could just have a whole bunch of fun. This is the top view of him. And so I'm gonna just, he's sort of leaning forward looking like he's hungry. So I think I might use the back side and start in the center, that I think this is the center, and do my little bamboo skewer a little bit and do a little circle pattern around, just gently pressing in. And then I'm going to take my little toothpick and sort of hold it really low and pull through the clay. And I make sort of a nice line. I'm going to hold it up so you can see what I'm sort of doing. So you can see that I go between my dots and I sort of hold it nice and low on the clay. So it doesn't tear the clay, it just pushes and compresses it. All right, so then from that spot, I might make another dot, a little dot, and then draw lines from there to there and make like a little V. You really can have fun. It almost is starting to look like a flower on top of his shell. So, yeah, that's pretty fun. All right, so then just some fun little details. You can add little claw marks, paw marks. Not sure what turtles have. They're just really cute. And then turtles have sort of some fun little faces. So I'm going to make his face a little bit more oval, and I can take with my toothpick, I can make him sort of have an open mouth. So I will take the toothpick on its side and depress it into the clay, and can you see that? So I just sort of draw a line right into the clay, and he has a little open mouth now. Maybe he's going to have some romaine lettuce later on. And then I'm going to maybe just add some dots for the eyes. I think they keep him simple. And smooth him out a little bit. Make sure I take a nice look around to see if I'm happy. He's kind of smiling. And I might come back in and smooth this out a little bit. Yep. I'm pretty happy with that. And again, I'm going to just find a little spot to put a hole, just a teeny hole, to let the air out as he dries. So now he has a friend. You can create a whole family. And that's how we would do the same for this little tiny guy. Let's see. I hope you have a great time. I'm not going to finish this one. I hope you have a great time. If you have extra clay from this part of working with clay, make sure that all of your clay makes it back into the bag and seal it up. Take out all the air from the clay, from the bag, and seal it up. These pieces can dry. They may take a couple days to dry. They'll be very fragile when they are dry and they change color. You can paint them, and then they can be very delicate sculptures in your home that you've made. And having handmade things in your home is pretty awesome to have around. I hope you have a really great time with this video, and I can't wait to see what you make from the clay that's being given out at the League Galleries. We are going to have a Zoom call at the end of the week, so probably around August 7th or 8th. We will have a Zoom call that's like a show and tell of what you've made during the week of the virtual fair. So thank you very much for stopping by, and I'll see you on a Zoom call with your clay animals. Take care.